Before I even begin my story, I need you to imagine something. You're rushing, breathless, running through cold city streets with your hands shaking, because you're already late for the most important meeting of your life. Your future depends on it. Your relationship depends on it. Your worth is about to be judged by a man powerful enough to destroy or save your entire world. A man people call the reclusive billionaire. A man who has a reputation for testing people silently, without warning, without mercy. Now imagine that while you're racing to meet him, desperate not to fail, you suddenly see someone sitting on a frozen sidewalk, shivering, hungry, ignored by the world. A homeless man who looks like he's fading into the concrete. You pause. Your heart whispers one thing, but your fear whispers another. Because any delay will make you late. And being late means failing his test before it even begins. But I did stop. I shared my only lunch with him, unaware that my single act of humanity was about to twist into something I never expected. Because when I finally walked into the mansion, breathing hard, hair messy, palms cold, my entire body froze. Sitting at the head of the table was the same homeless man I fed minutes earlier. The same man everyone warned me not to disappoint. My fiancé's reclusive billionaire father. And that moment was only the beginning of the revenge I never planned, but life forced me into. My name is Jessica Miller, and this is how a simple act of kindness led me into the darkest test of character, loyalty, betrayal, and silent retribution. My name is Jessica Miller, and I am 28 years old. And for most of my life, I believed silence was safer than speaking, that shrinking myself was the only way to avoid being broken. I grew up in a home where affection was rationed, where love had to be earned through perfection, and mistakes were punishable with icy stares that lasted for days. I learned early to read the temperature of a room the way others read newspapers, searching for danger, sensing shifts, anticipating emotional storms before they formed. My childhood dreams were quiet ones, a life where no one raised their voice, where I didn't have to brace myself for disappointment, where I could simply exist without fearing that someone's mood would crush me. Even as an adult, those fears lived under my skin like a shadow that never stopped moving. So when I met my fiancé, a man who promised peace and stability, I wanted to believe him more than I trusted myself. But meeting his father, the powerful billionaire recluse, became the defining moment that forced every buried fear to surface. I walked toward that mansion believing it was a test of worth, never realizing it would become a battlefield for revenge, and that the first blow had already been struck before I even reached the door. I remember the city that day, sharp winds slicing between buildings, clouds hanging low like they were eavesdropping on every breath I took. My fiancé had warned me that his father despised lateness, that he watched people closely, dissecting their smallest behavior as if every gesture revealed the truth of their soul. I carried those warnings with me, letting them tangle into my thoughts as I hurried through the streets. But then I saw him, the man sitting alone on the concrete, wrapped in ragged clothes, trembling as though winter itself had chosen him as its favorite victim. Something inside me paused, an instinct older than fear. Without speaking, I sat beside him, opening my small lunchbox and sharing what little I had. His eyes lifted to mine, tired but observant, as if he were memorizing the edges of my kindness. The moment felt strangely intimate, like the city sounds faded, and the world stopped to witness this fragile exchange. But the closer I got to the mansion afterward, the stronger my anxiety grew, heartbeat uneven, breath shallow, as if the universe was warning me that compassion had just cost me more than I could afford. When I finally reached the gate, late and shaking, I sensed something shifting beneath the surface. A silent consequence rising like a storm I wasn't ready for. The mansion was overwhelming, cold marble floors, echoing hallways, chandeliers dripping crystals that scattered light in sharp fragments. Everything felt designed to intimidate, to make you feel small enough to question your own existence. I walked slowly, each step heavy with dread, the sound of my heels bouncing back like accusations. My fiancé was waiting inside, jaw tightened, disappointment already shaping his expression. He didn't speak, but his silence carried blame heavier than words. Servants moved around us like shadows, watching, assessing, waiting for my inevitable mistake. When the doors to the dining room opened, time seemed to slow. That's when I saw him, clean-shaven, dressed in an immaculate suit, posture straight, gaze sharp enough to cut air. The same homeless man. Except now he radiated power, authority, and an unnerving calm. He didn't acknowledge our earlier encounter. He didn't blink. He simply studied me with a quiet intensity that crawled under my skin. My fiancé leaned in and whispered, "Don't embarrass me." And in that whisper, I understood something profound. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a trap. And I had walked straight into it. Dinner was suffocating. Every fork movement, every swallow, every breath felt monitored, evaluated, dissected. The billionaire father spoke rarely, but when he did, his words were deliberate, calculated, like a surgeon cutting open a wound. I kept replaying the moment on the street, his shivering, his hunger, his silence, and comparing it with the controlled dominance in the room now. My fiancé's father watched me the way a scientist watches a specimen, searching for cracks beneath the surface. My fiancé joined him, adding subtle jabs about responsibility, discipline, and knowing one's place. Their voices blended into something sharp, something manipulative, something meant to corner me. But I didn't defend myself. I observed, I listened, I stayed silent. Because in their arrogance, they forgot that silence can also be a weapon. I began to piece together the real test, not of character, but of obedience. They wanted to break me, reshape me, mold me into something quiet and grateful. But inside, a different fire was rising, slow and dangerous. And as the meal dragged on, I felt the first outline of revenge forming, soft, quiet, deliberate. Later, when the meal ended and the rooms emptied, the billionaire father approached me alone. His expression softened, not kindly, but knowingly. "Most people," he said quietly, "treat the weak differently than the powerful." His words pierced through me, echoing louder than the wind outside. I realized then that he'd orchestrated everything. The disguise, the timing, the humiliation, to see whether I'd bend under pressure. But what he didn't expect was the stillness inside me. I looked him in the eyes, giving him no excuses for my lateness, no apologies for my kindness, no fear for his wealth. That silence unsettled him. It was the first time his confidence cracked. He expected obedience, but he met resilience. My fiancé entered the hallway moments later, frustration radiating off him, demanding explanations I no longer felt obligated to provide. In that moment, I understood something powerful. The real test wasn't whether I could please them. It was whether I could walk away. And revenge, sometimes, is nothing more than refusing to be owned by the people who expect your submission. When I turned my back on both of them that night, I felt their world shift, because they finally realized they couldn't control mine. The next morning, I returned to that same street corner where I had shared my lunch, not searching for him, but to remind myself of the woman I had been before fear twisted my decisions. The air felt lighter, my steps more certain, my silence no longer a burden but a shield I had reclaimed. I didn't need to confront the billionaire father again, nor explain my choices to a fiancé who valued image over integrity. My revenge was quiet, unspoken, and absolute. I walked away with my dignity intact, leaving them to face a truth more painful than any argument. They had no power over me anymore. And in that simple, steady walk toward my own life, I felt something like victory settle into my chest. A victory earned not through shouting, but through choosing myself. This was my silent revenge, and this is Revenge Book. Where are you watching this video from? Let me know in the comments.